Welcome to day 10 of the handstand challenge. First off, just big apologies. This is the first time I've posted in a few days. Unfortunately, as life has tendencies to do, we just got a little bit carried away with DIY in the gym. For those of you who go to CrossFit Liverpool, hopefully we've got a few surprises for you when you get back into the gym. Bit exhausted, but again, is falling out of habit and falling back into habit. It's very hard to get back into the habit, so if you're like me, just carry on with it. It was really nice that we had a few people sort of prompt us to get back on these videos, so we will do, and we'll keep up with it from day to day again, alongside kind of doing the DIY in the gym. So we get back onto track. Where we said we were going with is doing a little bit more endurance work, focusing on your crow pose again, and focusing on leg lifts off a supported platform. So to start off with, get your shoulders warm. Get your wrists warm, so we're just going to do some shoulder stretches. I'll show you a little bit of a sped up one in a second, but there's one thing that we're going to introduce now. Now if you're like me and or if you're like most CrossFitters and you tend to struggle with straddle position, if you do the CrossFit gymnastics course, one of the reasons that we don't prescribe straddle positions for a lot of CrossFitters is generally because we tend to find that the adductors are a little bit weak. So what we're going to focus on is start off getting a little bit of mobility into those adductors. I get told off constantly by gymnasts for calling the stretch a pancake stretch, which is a very American term. In British gymnastics, we're supposed to call it Japana, which is where you're starting straddle position and you're trying to touch your belly and your hips towards the floor and you're learning to tilt from the pelvis. So what we're going to do is we're going to start from standing and do the most basic progression towards Japana, which is going to be, if we're going from kind of like a weightlifting perspective, it's going to be a sumo stance good morning. And what we're going to try and do is just keep your back as flat as possible. So I'll show you from the front, and I'll show you from the side. You're going to miss a lot from the front angle, so we'll show you from the side angle again. So what we want to try and achieve is, especially if you're like me, your feet will want to tend to wander outwards. So I try and do this from a straightforward stance again. Because I've got hyperextending knees as well, I have to keep my glutes locked. I have to keep my quads locked in the start position. We then want to imagine that we're going to push back from the hips, keep your eyes straight ahead, and we're going to kind of keep your chest as tall as possible, pushing your hips back, 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 getting as far as we can. So from the side stance, again, this would be my hyperextended position. So I want to try and keep it as locked as I can. Squeeze my hips nice and tight, and then just pushing back with the hips, eyes forward. How far can we get? Now that's about as far as I'm getting at the moment. I had got a bit better, but again, what we want to try and avoid is where we're rounding from the back to get any further into it. If I cheat and I can round my lower back, we're not cheating. I'm just getting more back flexibility there. We can get all the way down to the floor, but we want to stop when the movement stops at the hips. Breathe out a little bit to get a little bit lower and back up again. And you're going to do 10 repetitions at the end of each round. It's mobility rather than a buy-in. So for me, I'm going to do 5 breaths and a shoulder stretch on the bench. I'm then going to do 10 wrist rocks forwards and backwards. And then going to do 5 standing straddle stretch or sumo stance good mornings. So for your buy-in, we're going to go revisit 2 movements that we've done before. We're just going to do this twice through though. I want to do 5 alligator rolls, and I want to go into 10 side plank rotations. So for your alligator rolls, remember you're going from a hollow position on the floor, trying to turn your whole body at once. You're not trying to lead with your hips first and then with your shoulders. You want everything to turn over into the arch position in one smooth movement. Really try and imagine you're trying to reach your legs one way and reach your arms the other. Think about those active tissues again. For the other movement, for the side plank rotations, remember the added benefit is that you're working the shoulder blades. We're going to need nice strong shoulder blades. We're going to need to have a good understanding of what pinching those shoulder blades together is. So for your side plank rotation, if I show you from the fronts first, we're reaching through and then we're squeezing the shoulder blades together at the top. Yeah, so from the other side, it's reach through, squeeze your shoulder blades together at the top. And again, we're just going to do 2 rounds, 5 alligator rolls, 10 side plank rotations either side. Rest between those rounds if you want to, because it's going to be a bit of a core workout too. So for the skill work, we're going to revisit the crow pose or the crane pose. So between 3 to 5 attempts, just trying to hold your crow pose or your crane pose for as long as you can. Remember the difference is with your crow pose, we want to have a bent elbow, making sure that we're on top and we're holding, learn to use the fingers to control that position. Tuck your heels in as best you can. For the crane pose, it's the same thing. Try and get your knees as high as you can up your arms. Again, that gets really uncomfortable. If you struggle with flexibility of the hips or flexibility of the back, that's also going to be a problem. Again, you can go from the elbow, which is what I have to do for crane pose, to try and lock it out. But as we're working on flexibility, hopefully, we should be able to work our way a little bit higher. So the tolerance and the flexibility side of things are going to be an issue. But again, I'm not saying work through pain, but like I say, discomfort's going to be a part of learning something new. And if you get a bit comfortable with accepting that discomfort, all good. So again, for the crane pose, a little bit higher if you can, extending those arms as much as possible. We're going to focus on 2 movements again. We're going to put them into a superset with the rest in between. You're going to get yourself a box or a bench. Today I'm going to do it with bench, just because I say it's not so nice outside, the weather's taking a bit of a turn. So I'm going to use a bench, which is a little bit harder than if you've got a higher platform. The higher it is, generally the easier it is to get your hips, your shoulders and your hands stacked in a line. So again, I'm not going to mess up the nice white walls, but if you can say it's, if it's your house, then you're perfectly welcome to do that. Again, is if you want to walk up the wall a little bit and then try and get everything stacked in a nice straight line, absolutely brilliant. For me, this is a little bit of awareness of trying to use your core, trying to tuck your hips underneath. And then I like the leg lifts. Again, they lead on later on to kind of like fluttering off the wall. But at the moment, they give you kind of like something else to focus on rather than just kind of like holding for 30 seconds. So it's going to be 5 leg lifts each leg. Try and take a bit of a pause each repetition. The second exercise is a really tough one. It's progressing on from your straddle lifts and your leg lifts. And I'll show you a bit of a progression as we're going through it. So you're going to get yourself 2 objects. For us, because we've got parallettes in the house, we're going to use 2 parallettes. I'm going to place them this way so that you can see from the side, just because that's where the progression comes in. Again, we get a lot of people in the classes when they're doing the gymnastics. If you struggle with things like that pancake good morning that we were doing earlier on, calling it all kinds of names, aren't I? The sumo good morning or the beginner pancake stretch. If you kind of struggle with that, having your hands behind you is fine. We tend to find that if you're a little bit more flexible, that's a bit too easy. Yep. You're not really going to get the same kind of burning sensation that we get from somebody who's trying to progress their flexibility. So once you can, try and get comfortable again with hinging at the hips just like you did, and then lifting one leg over and then the other leg over. The progression for this, we're going to call, one repetition is going to be out and back in, and that's 1 repetition. Your progression will be slowly and eventually working your hands. Again, we don't want to be out here as we're doing it. We want to be nice and flat backed. But again, it's like, for me, probably that's going to be my limit. And this time, we're getting a really deep hip flexor burning sensation. Yep. So it's going to be 10 lifts off the box, and then we're going to do 5 full repetitions of pike to straddle over 2 objects. Again, scaling upwards, that's quite a high position. If you go a little bit lower for you, again, as long as you're not kind of like rocking to get yourself back and over it, we want to try and avoid this as much as we can. Try and keep that compression, because that's going to really help you, especially if you're a CrossFitter and you want to work on your hip flexor strength for something like toes to bar or muscle ups. Again, that's really, really going to help you with your endurance.